Hello.
Let me tell you something about trust. It's a luxury you can't afford. Looking back, I should have known better. My wife cheated on me and got pregnant by another man. My revenge hurt her even more, but I'm getting ahead of myself. If you're reading this, maybe you can learn from my mistakes. Pay attention to the red flags I ignored. Trust, but verify. Always. My name is Mason Reynolds. I'm 45 years old, and until last year, I thought I had the perfect life. I met Olivia Garcia during a business conference in Chicago 12 years ago. She was the event coordinator, confident, vivacious, with this infectious laugh that made everyone around her smile. I was instantly captivated. 3 months of long-distance dating, 1 year of engagement, and we were married in a small ceremony in Lake Tahoe. Our life together was comfortable. We bought a colonial-style house in suburban Massachusetts, renovated it exactly how we wanted, and settled into a rhythm that felt right. Olivia transitioned from event planning to HR at a local tech firm, while I built my reputation as a corporate turnaround specialist. My job as an expert in restructuring troubled companies meant frequent travel. I was the guy boards called when their businesses were circling the drain. I'd fly in, analyze operations, cut the dead weight, and implement recovery plans. It paid extremely well, but required me to be away from home for weeks at a time, sometimes in different time zones. You're like a corporate surgeon, Olivia used to say, cutting away the diseased parts to save the patient. She seemed proud of my work, never complained about my travel schedule, and always welcomed me home with enthusiasm. When I walked through the door after being gone, she'd have my favorite meal waiting, maple glazed salmon with roasted vegetables. She'd ask about my trip, listen intently to my stories about dysfunctional executives and corporate waste. I'd bring her little gifts from wherever I'd been, a silk scarf from Milan, artisanal chocolates from Seattle. Our reunions always felt special. I don't know how you do it, my colleague Tom once said during a consulting job in Denver. My wife would have left me with this schedule. I remember laughing it off, feeling secretly superior about my rock-solid marriage. Olivia understands. We trust each other completely, I told him. That trust was my first mistake. Not because trust itself is wrong, but because I let it blind me. I stopped paying attention to the subtle changes. I ignored the increasingly brief phone calls when I was away. I didn't question why her social media activity spiked during my absences. I dismissed the new clothes, the different hairstyle, the gym membership she suddenly couldn't live without. In my line of work, I'm paid to spot irregularities in balance sheets, identify inefficiencies in operations, and recognize when someone is feeding me a line of bull. I can walk into a failing business and within hours identify precisely what's wrong. Yet in my own home, with my own wife, I missed every single warning sign. The day everything changed was completely ordinary. I had just finished a 3-week assignment in Phoenix, turning around a manufacturing company that had been hemorrhaging money for years. I was exhausted but satisfied. The board had implemented my recommendations, the CEO had been replaced, and projections showed the company returning to profitability within 6 months. Another successful rescue operation. I called Olivia from the airport. I'll be home by dinner, I told her. Great, she said, sounding genuinely excited. I have amazing news to share. I had no idea that her amazing news would shatter my world into 1,000 pieces. I arrived home that evening to find Olivia had prepared a special dinner, complete with candles and wine, which she wasn't drinking. That should have been my first clue. You look tired, she said, kissing my cheek. Was Phoenix rough? The usual corporate mess. CFO cooking the books, middle management too terrified to speak up. I loosened my tie and poured myself a glass of Cabernet. But enough about failing businesses. You said you had news. Olivia's face lit up with a smile I hadn't seen in years. She reached for my hand across the table. I'm pregnant, Mason. The wine glass froze halfway to my lips. My mind instantly began calculating, the way it does when I'm reviewing suspicious financial statements. I've been gone for 3 weeks. Before that, I was home for just 4 days between assignments. And before that, another 2-week stint in Dallas. Wow, I managed. That's unexpected. I know. I was shocked too. I took 3 tests to be sure. I forced a smile, raised my glass. To our family. Later that night, while Olivia slept, I sat in my home office reviewing my calendar. The math wasn't adding up. Over the past 3 months, I'd been home for a total of 11 days, scattered, jet-lag days where intimacy wasn't always a priority. I opened my laptop and checked credit card statements, a habit from my work. Nothing unusual. Grocery stores, gas stations, her usual online shopping. Then I checked our joint account activity. Regular withdrawals at an ATM near her office. Normal. But something didn't feel right. The next morning over breakfast, I casually asked, "How far along do you think you are?" Olivia shrugged, spreading jam on her toast. "Not sure exactly. Maybe 6 weeks. We'll find out at the doctor's appointment." "I want to come with you," I said, watching her reaction carefully. She seemed momentarily surprised. "You do? Don't you have that situation in Chicago coming up?" I did have a potential client in Chicago, a retail chain on the brink of bankruptcy, but I hadn't mentioned it to her. "How did you know about Chicago?" I asked evenly. "You mentioned it last week on the phone," she said quickly. Too quickly. I nodded, though I was certain I hadn't. "I'll reschedule. This is more important." "That's sweet, but unnecessary. It's just a routine first visit." "I insist," I said, smiling. "I want to be involved from the beginning." Something flickered across her face. Concern? Fear? It disappeared so quickly I almost thought I'd imagined it. "Okay," she finally said. "I'll call today and schedule it." As I watched her pick at her breakfast, I made a decision. For the first time in my career, I was going to apply my professional skills to my personal life. If there was a discrepancy here, I would find it. I've spent my career investigating failing businesses, looking for the cracks that signaled deeper problems. Now I was applying those same techniques to my marriage. Step 1. Gather data without alerting the subject. I told Olivia I needed to work from home for a few days before my next assignment. She seemed surprised but didn't object. While she was at work, I began my investigation. First, I checked our cell phone records. Over the past 6 months, there was a recurring number, dozens of texts and calls, always during my travel periods. The number wasn't saved in our shared contacts. I ran the number through a business database I use for background checks. It belonged to a James Westfield, 38, financial advisor of the same tech company where Olivia worked. Next, I checked our Amazon account history. 2 purchases caught my attention: a book on pregnancy, ordered 4 weeks ago, and a box of premium pregnancy tests ordered 10 weeks ago. Long before she'd shared her surprise with me, I installed a tracking app on her phone remotely through her cloud account. Something I'd normally find invasive, but these weren't normal circumstances. Then I synced her calendar to mine. That evening, I acted normal, asking about her day while noticing she deleted her browser history, something she never used to do. "I thought I'd come to your doctor's appointment Monday," I said casually. "Oh," she responded, briefly hesitating. I actually rescheduled for Wednesday at 2. I checked her calendar later. No appointment on Wednesday. But there was a lunch meeting with JW at 1 o'clock on Tuesday. The next day, I pretended to take a work call while watching her text someone, smiling at her phone in a way she never did with me anymore. The tracking app showed her location at lunch. Not her usual deli, but a small bistro 15 minutes from her office. The final piece. I found a jewelry box hidden in her drawer, a silver bracelet I'd never seen, with an engraving, "Forever yours, Jay." I sat in my home office that night, assembling the evidence like I'd done for countless corporate investigations. The conclusion was inescapable. Olivia was having an affair with this James, had suspected her pregnancy weeks ago, and was now trying to pass off his child as mine. The doctor's appointment was my opportunity to confirm everything. I didn't confront her yet. A cardinal rule of investigations is never to reveal what you know until you have all the facts. I scheduled a video call with my lawyer for the following afternoon. If my suspicions were correct, I needed to be prepared for what came next. In my line of work, I'd seen companies try to hide their insolvency through creative accounting. Now my wife was trying to hide her infidelity through creative timeline manipulation. Both tactics always fail in the end. The day of the doctor's appointment arrived with a strange sense of calm. I had prepared myself for what was coming, emotionally and strategically. "Ready to go?" Olivia asked, grabbing her purse. She looked nervous, constantly checking her phone. "Absolutely," I replied with practiced ease. "Wouldn't miss it." The drive to the medical center was quiet. Olivia kept glancing at me, probably wondering if I suspected anything. I maintained light conversation about work, a potential new client, anything but the appointment ahead. The waiting room was filled with expectant couples. We looked just like them, the excited husband, the glowing wife. All a carefully constructed facade. Olivia Reynolds, a nurse called. We followed her to the examination room. The ultrasound technician arrived shortly after. "First baby?" she asked cheerfully. "Yes," I answered before Olivia could speak. "We're very excited to learn how far along we are." The technician smiled, spreading gel on Olivia's stomach. "Let's take a look." I watched the screen intently as a grainy image appeared. The technician took measurements, clicking and typing. "Well, looks like you're about 8 weeks along," she announced. 8 weeks. I kept my face neutral, but inside I felt cold confirmation. 8 weeks ago, I was in Seattle for 12 days straight. "That's wonderful," I said, squeezing Olivia's hand perhaps a bit too firmly. "When would the due date be?" "January 18th, approximately," the technician replied. Olivia was watching me nervously. She knew what I was doing, pinning down exact dates. After the technician left, the doctor came in to discuss prenatal care. I asked detailed questions about conception dates and early pregnancy, maintaining the facade of an excited father-to-be. Most women don't realize they're pregnant until they miss a period, sometimes two, the doctor explained. "And when would that have been in this case?" I asked innocently. "Based on the ultrasound, conception likely occurred around May 14th to 18th. I nodded thoughtfully. I had been in Seattle from May 8th to May 20th. On the drive home, Olivia attempted small talk, but I responded minimally. She knew something was wrong, but wasn't ready to acknowledge it. "Aren't you happy about the baby?" she finally asked as we pulled into our driveway. I parked the car and turned to face her. "I have a question, Olivia. How is it possible that we conceived a child when I was in Seattle for that entire period?" The color drained from her face. "The doctor said those dates are just estimates. It could have been before you left. The timing doesn't work," I replied evenly. "I've checked my calendar. I've reviewed the medical information. And I found the text between you and James Westfield." Her eyes widened in shock, then filled with tears. "Who's the father, Olivia?" She didn't answer, but she didn't need to. Her silence was confirmation enough. "I have a video call with my lawyer in 20 minutes, I said, getting out of the car. "I suggest you start thinking about what happens next." While Olivia cried in our bedroom, I joined a video call with Howard Jennings, my attorney of 8 years. He had helped me structure my business deals. Now he would help me dissolve my marriage. "Mason," he greeted me. "What's this urgent matter?" I laid out the facts methodically. My travel schedule, the pregnancy timeline, the ultrasound confirmation, the evidence of Olivia's affair. Howard took notes, his expression professional. "I'm sorry you're going through this, Mason. What outcome are you seeking?" "Clean break, minimal loss," I replied, the same approach I recommended to clients with failing business units. "I want to protect my assets, especially the business." Smart thinking. Massachusetts is an equitable distribution state. Without a prenup, she could claim half of everything, including your business value. I knew this, which is why I'd already begun planning. I've taken some precautions. Over the next hour, we crafted a strategy. I would transfer my most valuable assets into trusts and LLCs, effectively separating them from marital property. My business would undergo a restructuring, with shares redistributed to reduce my paper ownership. "This needs to happen quickly," Howard advised. "Once divorce proceedings begin, asset transfers look suspicious." "I'll need 2 weeks," I calculated. "I have contacts who can expedite the paperwork." "What about the pregnancy situation?" "I'll demand a paternity test after birth. In the meantime, I'm gathering evidence of the affair." Howard's expression grew serious. "Mason, I've seen divorce destroy businesses. People get emotional, make mistakes. Can you handle this clinically, like one of your corporate turnarounds?" "I already am," I assured him. "Emotions have no place in this situation." After the call ended, I created a detailed action plan, assets to transfer, documents to prepare, evidence to secure. I would treat this like any failing enterprise that needed dismantling. Identify the valuable components, discard the rest, minimize losses. That evening, Olivia approached me in my office, eyes red from crying. "Can we talk about this?" she asked quietly. "There's nothing to discuss," I replied, not looking up from my laptop. You betrayed our marriage and tried to pass another man's child off as mine. I made a terrible mistake, she admitted. James was just. I don't care who James is or what he was to you. I interrupted. I care that you lied. Repeatedly. Deliberately. What happens now? Her voice trembled. I finally looked at her, keeping my expression neutral. Now I protect myself. We're done, Olivia. Just like that. 12 years of marriage, and you're throwing it away. The audacity nearly made me laugh. I didn't throw anything away. You did. When you slept with your coworker and got pregnant. I still love you, she whispered. No, I replied calmly. You loved the security I provided while you pursued excitement elsewhere. That arrangement is terminated. She started crying again, but I felt nothing. In my world of corporate restructuring, sentimentality was a liability. You couldn't save a company by clinging to its past glory. You analyzed the current reality and made hard decisions. That's exactly what I intended to do. The next 2 weeks passed in a carefully orchestrated dance. By day, I worked remotely, taking calls from clients while executing my asset protection strategy. By night, I maintained a cold civility with Olivia, who alternated between tearful apologies and angry accusations. You're being cruel, she said one evening as I reviewed paperwork. 12 years together, and you won't even try to work through this. I looked up from my documents. My wife cheated on me and got pregnant by another man. My revenge is simply protecting what's mine, which will hurt her even more than any emotional outburst could. She flinched at my words. Is that what this is about? Revenge? No, I replied calmly. It's about consequences. You made choices. Now you deal with the results. Behind the scenes, my plan progressed perfectly. My business underwent restructuring, with majority control transferred to a holding company in Wyoming. Our house was remortgaged with the funds directed to business expansion. Our joint investment accounts were liquidated for new opportunities. Howard called to confirm our legal strategy. The paperwork is nearly complete. When do you plan to file? Next Monday, I replied. Everything will be finalized by then. And Olivia? Any complications? She's emotional, but unaware of the financial moves. She assumes we're headed for a standard divorce with a 50-50 split. Howard sighed. She's in for a rude awakening. On Friday, I received confirmation that the last transfers were complete. My wealth was now effectively shielded. I scheduled a DNA sample collection for the following week, redundant given the timing evidence, but necessary for court. That evening, I packed a suitcase while Olivia watched from the doorway. Where are you going? She asked. I booked a hotel for a few days. I'm filing for divorce on Monday. Her face paled. Mason, please. Can we at least try counseling? For the sake of what? I interrupted. A child that isn't mine? A marriage built on lies. I made one mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. Sleeping with a coworker for months and trying to pass his child off as mine is a deliberate betrayal. Tears streamed down her face. What about our home? Our life together? I closed my suitcase with a decisive click. You should start looking for an apartment. I'll be keeping the house. You can't do that, she protested. Half of everything is legally mine. I smiled thinly. We'll see about that. As I drove to the hotel, my phone buzzed repeatedly with Olivia's calls. I ignored them all. Once checked in, I sent a brief text to James Westfield. You should know Olivia is pregnant with your child. I'm divorcing her Monday. She's your responsibility now. Then I blocked his number too. Monday morning arrived with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. I met Howard at his office at 8 a.m. sharp, dressed in my best suit. The same one I wore when closing major business deals. All the paperwork is ready, Howard said, sliding a thick folder across his desk. We're filing for divorce on grounds of adultery, with supporting evidence. I signed where indicated, each signature feeling like another nail in the coffin of my marriage. What's your next move? Howard asked. Back to work, I replied. I have a new client in Detroit, manufacturing company on the brink. I'll be there for the next 3 weeks. Howard nodded approvingly. Good. Distance helps in these situations. Have you spoken to Olivia since Friday? No. I've blocked her calls and texts. Any communication should go through you. As if on cue, Howard's phone rang. His assistant's voice came through the speaker. Mr. Jennings, there's an Olivia Reynolds insisting on speaking with you. Howard raised an eyebrow at me. I nodded. Put her through, he said. "This is Howard Jennings. Where's my husband?" Olivia demanded, her voice tight with anger. "Mrs. Reynolds, I represent Mason in your divorce proceedings. All communication should be directed to my office from now on." "Divorce proceedings?" She sounded genuinely shocked. He was serious. "Very serious. You'll be served papers this afternoon." "This is ridiculous. We need to talk this through like adults." Howard's response was measured. "I suggest you retain counsel, Mrs. Reynolds. The filing includes evidence of your extramarital affair and pregnancy." Silence followed, then a strangled sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. "You can't just," she began. "Additionally," Howard continued smoothly, "we've included a petition regarding the marital assets. Mr. Reynolds has documentation showing his significant separate property interests in most major assets." "What does that mean?" Olivia's voice had lost its edge. "It means you should get a lawyer," Howard replied. "Immediately." After he hung up, I checked my watch. "The process server should be at our house within the hour." Howard gave me a searching look. "You're handling this remarkably well. It's just another failing enterprise that needs to be wound down efficiently," I said. "I've had plenty of practice." I left his office and drove straight to the airport. My phone buzzed continually with calls from unknown numbers. Olivia using different phones, no doubt. I ignored them all. On the plane to Detroit, I ordered a scotch and reviewed the file on my new client, a third-generation manufacturing business drowning in debt, with outdated equipment and a bloated workforce. Another situation requiring tough decisions and strategic cuts. As we reached cruising altitude, I received a text from Howard. "Papers served. Subject extremely distressed, but accepted service." I put my phone in airplane mode and opened my laptop. The marriage was officially over. Now it was just a matter of minimizing losses and extracting maximum value from whatever remained. Just another day in the business of corporate restructuring. 3 months passed in a blur of depositions, financial disclosures, and court appearances. I split my time between the Detroit client and divorce proceedings, treating both with the same analytical precision. Olivia had hired Patricia Dawson, a shark of a divorce attorney known for aggressive tactics. At our first joint meeting, Patricia slammed a folder on the conference table. "These asset transfers are textbook fraud upon the court," she declared. "We'll have them reversed immediately." Howard remained unruffled. "The business restructuring began years ago, documented with proper corporate minutes and tax filings. Your client was aware and signed off on multiple transactions." This was stretching the truth. While the groundwork had been laid years earlier, most decisive moves happened after I discovered the affair. But everything was properly backdated and documented. "Ms. Dawson," I interjected, "I've been in the business of corporate restructuring for 15 years. These arrangements are standard practice for protecting business assets from liability." "Liability including cheating wives?" Patricia shot back. I met her gaze evenly. "Including any potential threat to business continuity." The judge assigned to our case was Eleanor Michaels, a no-nonsense veteran of family court who'd seen every trick. At the preliminary hearing, she reviewed our financial disclosures with a skeptical eye. "Mr. Reynolds," she said, peering over her glasses, "you expect the court to believe that despite a household income exceeding $400,000 annually, you personally own assets valued at just under $100,000. "Your Honor," Howard responded, "my client's personal assets are indeed limited. His business interests, held through properly established corporate entities, represent the majority of his net worth." Judge Michaels frowned. "And these entities were established when?" "The primary holding company was formed in 2018, Your Honor. Subsequent restructuring occurred over the following years." She didn't look convinced, but moved on. Meanwhile, Olivia's pregnancy progressed. At 6 months along, she appeared in court visibly showing, clearly hoping to garner sympathy. Judge Michaels remained unmoved. "The paternity issue is not before this court today," she stated firmly. I'd already filed a separate motion disavowing paternity, with evidence of my travel schedule and the medical confirmation of conception dates. A DNA test would follow after birth, but it was merely a formality at this point. Between hearings, Olivia attempted reconciliation through mutual friends. She sent messages through Tom and his wife, suggesting counseling, claiming hormonal confusion had led to her mistake. I declined all overtures. James Westfield had apparently vanished from the picture Once I'd texted him about the pregnancy. According to office gossip relayed by former colleagues, he'd requested a transfer to the company's Austin office shortly after. She made her bed. I told Tom when he pressed me to reconsider. Now she gets to lie in it alone. Tom shook his head. I barely recognize you anymore, Mason. You used to have a heart. I shrugged. I still do. I just keep it where it belongs. Out of business decisions. 7 months after filing for divorce, we arrived at the final hearing. The Detroit client had been successfully turned around. Unprofitable divisions shut down, workforce reduced by 30%, new manufacturing processes implemented. The company was now cash flow positive for the first time in 5 years. If only divorces could be resolved so efficiently. Judge Michaels entered the courtroom, reviewing her notes before addressing us. This case has presented unusual challenges regarding asset division and paternity claims. I've reviewed all evidence thoroughly. I sat beside Howard, my expression neutral. Across the aisle, Olivia was now 8 months pregnant, her attorney hovering protectively. Regarding financial matters, Judge Michaels began, I find Mr. Reynolds' business structures to be legally established, albeit with questionable timing for certain transactions. Patricia Dawson straightened, sensing an opening, but the judge continued. However, I also find that Mr. Reynolds has proven these structures follow his established business practices and predate the marital issues. Howard subtly nodded in satisfaction. Therefore, the corporate assets will remain separate property. Mrs. Reynolds is entitled only to her portion of explicitly marital assets, as outlined in Exhibit C. Olivia's sharp intake of breath was audible throughout the courtroom. Exhibit C limited her to roughly 15% of her total net worth. The house, 1 investment account, and half of my 401k. As for the paternity matter, Judge Michaels continued, Mr. Reynolds has provided compelling evidence that he was physically absent during the conception period. DNA testing will still be required after birth, but the court acknowledges the strength of the circumstantial evidence. She continued methodically through custody arrangements, none, given the paternity evidence, and finalized the division of remaining property. This divorce is hereby granted. Parties are free to remarry after the statutory waiting period. Outside the courtroom, Olivia approached me, her eyes red-rimmed. You've taken everything, she said, voice trembling. The house, the savings, my security. Are you satisfied now? I regarded her calmly. I took nothing, Olivia. I protected what was rightfully mine. You gambled with our marriage and lost. Where am I supposed to go? What about the baby? That's between you and James. I suggest contacting him in Austin. She looked shocked. How did you? I know everything, I said simply. I always find out eventually. It's what I do. Howard appeared at my elbow, subtly suggesting we leave. As we walked toward the elevators, Olivia called after me. I hope your business success keeps you warm at night, Mason. That's all you ever really cared about anyway. I didn't turn around. Her words contained more truth than she realized. My business was predictable, controllable. People weren't. That evening, I sat in my hotel room reviewing acquisition targets for a new client. My phone buzzed with a text from Tom. Heard about the verdict. Brutal, man. You okay? I texted back. Just business as usual. And it was. Throughout my career, I dismantled failing operations to extract maximum value. This divorce was no different. Identifying the valuable assets, cutting losses, moving forward efficiently. The marriage had been just another failed enterprise. And I'd salvaged everything worth keeping. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, I stood in my new penthouse overlooking Boston Harbor. The lights of the city reflected on the water, mirroring the stars above. It was a view I'd earned. My phone buzzed. A text from Howard. DNA results confirmed what we already knew. 0% probability of paternity. Case officially closed. I set the phone down without replying. The formal confirmation was merely paperwork at this point. I'd known the truth from the beginning. The Detroit company I'd rescued had been acquired by a major conglomerate, netting my firm a substantial success fee. I'd used part of it to open a second office in Chicago, expanding my corporate restructuring practice. I'd heard through the grapevine that Olivia had moved back to her hometown in California after selling the house. James Westfield had apparently refused to participate in the child's life, offering only minimal court-mandated support. She was living with her parents, working remotely for a smaller tech firm. Tom still criticized my handling of the divorce, though less frequently now. You could have been more generous, he said during his last visit. Given everything you have, would it have killed you to help her get started somewhere? It wasn't about the money, I told him. It was about consequences. Actions have them. Always. In my business, I'd seen countless executives make catastrophic decisions, then expect bailouts and golden parachutes. I refused to offer Olivia what I denied to failed corporate leaders: a consequence-free reset. I poured myself a scotch and reviewed the quarterly reports for my newest client, a healthcare conglomerate with 3 failing divisions and bloated administrative costs. Tomorrow, I'd present my restructuring plan: close 2 divisions, consolidate administration, reduce headcount by 40%. Some would call it heartless. I called it necessary. Emotions had no place in business decisions, just as they had no place in my response to betrayal. The lesson I learned from my failed marriage had made me even better at my job. Sentimentality was the enemy of sound judgment. Clean, decisive cuts were sometimes the only way forward. My phone buzzed again. A woman I'd been seeing casually, wondering if I was free for dinner. Not tonight, I texted back. Early presentation tomorrow. She replied with a simple, okay, no drama, no pressure. Just the way I wanted things now. Clear boundaries, defined expectations, no illusions of forever. Some might call my new life cold or empty. They'd be wrong. I'd simply restructured my personal life the way I did failing businesses. Identified the weaknesses, eliminated vulnerabilities, focused on core strengths. Trust was a luxury I no longer afforded anyone. Verification was my new standard operating procedure. And unlike my marriage, my business continued to thrive because of it. Looking out at the harbor, I raised my glass in a silent toast. To lessons learned. To consequences delivered. To a future built on stronger foundations than blind trust and broken promises.
Bye.